you know, we're from Europe, and I must say, Europe has a step ahead of you guys here, or us guys. I'm an American now too, and me too. They prohibit stuff, and right now, since about 2 years, there's a new bill in Europe at the EU. I don't particularly like the politics of the EU in the sense that they over-regulate. They like to regulate. So in the beginning, they even regulated what you can call a banana because it had to have a certain angle of the bending, right? So it just like, or the tomato had to have a certain size to be, I mean, it's just stupid, but you know, that's when people, I mean, you always have people that go too far. But overall, they are recognizing now since quite a while, and here in the US, the EPA, 3 days ago, while we were all here, put out that we have too many forever chemicals in the soil, in the water, still left over from some bad stuff that was mostly in household products. And so they're starting to wake up somehow, right? So in Europe, you're not allowed, in many countries, since over 10 years or so, you're not allowed to use glyphosate, for example. You just don't. And right now, this bill is looking at 140 plus chemicals, which they call endocrine disruptors, right? What is an endocrine disruptor? Endocrinology has to do with your hormones. And I told you already on this stage, and wherever I am, it's like all these household products that we have. I mean, I'm not talking about the living, I'm talking about the crap that is out there. This is when you go clean and you walk in a store and you walk that aisle, you almost puke, right? I never had that before I went clean. And so it's really like, I can smell it like 2 aisles away, and unfortunately, at the store where I get my dog food, the next aisle is this chemical stuff. And whenever I go and get the dog food, I kind of go like that, not because of the dog food, but because of what's the next aisle. So yeah, so there's a big movement. So going back to the yellow stuff, yeah, there was just a study last week, a few days ago, that said if one little package, they were measuring the poop, and it was destroying 50% of the puke families, right? Again, you have multiple families, and depending on your body weight, you have a little more of this or a little more of that. And this is where the mice transplant, the fecal transplant, where we have so much fun with, right, comes in, because when you transplant healthy families to the other side, then there's a healthy battle going on between two healthy families, but one healthy family getting too big, you get obese. The other one getting bigger, you get thinner. So again, it has to do with, again, the connection between your gut and your brain. And so yesterday I talked about neurotransmitters, those things that you have when the nerves are sending signals in your brain. Every single nerve connects to another 40,000 nerves. I mean, just imagine, the speed of electric signals is over 400 miles an hour. And then there's over 100,000 chemical reaction happening per second. That's your brain, right? This is why we have difficulties to copy that with any supercomputer. Your brain is just the supercomputer. And so some of these neurotransmitters, those who were here yesterday, I told you are created in your gut. This is one of the many connections between your gut and your brain, the gut-brain axis. So if your gut is not okay, because the microbe families are not okay, your endocrine production, some of these hunger hormones and satiety hormones, all of that is not okay. Some of your neurotransmitters are not okay. And of course, when they're not okay, your brain cannot work properly. And so there's really close connection. And when you destroy with artificial sweetener or chemicals, whatever, you know, they put in our food today. I mean, just watch the videos I did on the collagen and the ninja greens. I'm talking about that stuff because, again, power of nature, right? It's so it's strong. But what do we do in the processing? We take nature at its best. We kick out everything that is good, and then we replace it with synthetics and put on the package, reinforced with vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever it is, and it's all synthetic stuff, right? Why not leave it in there in the first place? Well, it has to do because it's too expensive in the processing. And then most of the stuff then goes into the frozen section. You know, it's just upside down. The whole food industry is upside down. Now, population is growing, so it's getting more difficult to feed the population. But we need to look at the ocean. Seaweed is just like, I mean, I'm just not making, you know, advertising for any store, but Costco is the biggest organic food seller in the U.S. I don't know if you knew. They spend a lot of money with farmers to transfer them over 2, 3, 4 years, and then the farmer has to sign, like, I don't know, 10-year contract, whatever it is. But they transform them from chemical farmer to organic farming. And so, you know, so if you get seaweed at Costco, I go to a health store, I get a little tiny seaweed package, I pay like $5 for that. I go to Costco, I get this huge pack for about $5, right? And it lasts me a month. So yeah, go look. Seaweed is a really important thing for the future. Mushrooms. Look at mushrooms. Again, Costco, you can get organic mushrooms, a whole bunch of different kinds. So, you know, Gary, in the time I spent with Gary, we talked a lot, what's the future in product development with Young Living? And this is what you hear Mary talk about, right? We need to revisit a lot of the original formulations, because at that time, 10, 20 years ago, the knowledge and the alternatives were not here. I mean, some of the knowledge was not there. And so going back and reformulating something like Power Meal is an excellent idea. And then you're going to see many more, like Detoxime just got reformulated, Allozyme just got reformulated. You're going to see a lot of reformulation in the next 3 years. And I hope also they go more with the shampoos and soaps. They still, you know, I mean, you need a certain minimum amount of stuff, so it's not just like going in there and then you have fatty hair, right? You want to still have nice hair after you shampoo them. But still, we still have ways to go. But we look very good in the market, right? Especially with this Innate Beauty Collagen, and that's maybe something we can do here just in the next few minutes.
I have a question about the collagen. I have a doctor friend at home. She's sick today, but has a ticket to come and see you. But she wanted to ask you about how does it get through the stomach with the stomach acid? What molecules does it attach to? And what's the duration of the effect and concentration differential?
All right. So, and again, I mean, if you want one question, I mean, we'll ask this guy, but let's do Innate Collagen. Right? Innate Beauty Collagen. I mean, I studied now collagen for quite a while, right? Because collagen is really, let me stand up. So collagen is really the glue that keeps your body together. Did you know that we have 28 different collagens? 28. The ones that you see in the product sold, typically the first 6, 1 to 6. The most important one is 1, collagen type 1. Then comes type 3, and I'm talking importance for whatever organ system. So why do most people take collagen? Collagen. Okay. Feedback, that's the frequency, right? All that. So most people will take collagen for beauty. That's not the purpose of collagen. It's so much more. If you think you're just going to take it for your skin, your wrinkles, and your hair, your nails, you're missing it. It's your blood vessels, it's your heart, it's your bones, it's your collagen, it's every single tissue, it's your gut wall, right? Coming back to the poop, you will have no good transmitter production if you don't have a good gut wall, and guess what? The gut wall needs collagen. So collagen, this is the point I'm trying to do in the video, so go home and watch the video that I did. It's a 28-minute video on the Innate Beauty Collagen and 28-minute video on Ninja Greens. So type 1 is really the one that is most abundant in your body. About of your collagen that you produce, about 85-90% is type 1. Then type 3 is very similar to type 1. So you see some products that mix type 1 and type 3, it's kind of the same purpose. It's the whole body, even including the joint. I mean, some of it goes into bones and joint. Type 2, which is the most sold collagen out there. Why? Because we have all these cattle farms and pork farms and chicken farms, and the bones are typically left over when they fillet or make your steak. And so they sell these bones off to collagen companies, and they produce type 2 collagen from these bones. And type 2 collagen is what most companies sell. It's quite cheap to acquire. And type 2 is then sold for your beauty. Well, guess what? If you like to have inside your knee and your hip beauty, you're right on. Go with type 2. It kind of always amazes me because I already saw now on Facebook where it says, Young Living, finally, 5 years later after all these collagen companies pop up, finally they're coming to the game. And they already start talking bad about the collagen that we're doing, right? Well, guess what? And I hear the word copycat, right? Well, I just encourage you, whenever you have someone, and we know that they coach in here, so they will approach you, just take a mirror. And when they say copycat, just put up the mirror. Because 15 years ago, Gary Young created a product called BLM, bone, ligament, muscle. Have you ever looked at that label? Type 2 collagen, hyaluronic acid, right? All these things that people now think is the newest of the newest, Gary created 15 plus years ago, and then a few years later he created Agilis for your joints. And in fact, I have really good joints at this point. I had osteoporosis over 20 years ago, and it's gone, right? Yeah, so, well, that's workout, it's like CBD, CBD, bone and CBD. CBD activates osteoblasts, which are the cells that create bone. They deactivate osteoclasts, so blast with the B, class with the C. Osteoclasts are those that decrease the bone. Your bone is constantly going up and down and up and down. So if you can boost those that build it and inhibit those that break it, then you have better bones. So one of the reasons why I'm doing CBD, since ever it's legal, let's say it this way. No. You get my drift. And so go back to this collagen. Really the most important collagen we need to have is the one that our body starts to do less of it. Not only are we creating less of the collagen as we age, we also create lesser quality. So it's not just the quantity, but also the quality. And so, then the next question was, and I'm kind of repeating myself from the video that I made for you, but just because you can put something on the skin or whatever, it doesn't mean it goes inside. So collagen is one of those things that really doesn't absorb yet. Maybe there will be some whatever formulation that will absorb, but today you have to take it internally. So what's the advantage of the, and what's the size of the particles? Well, the 3 amino acids, it's hydroxyproline, proline, and glycine. And they form like a little, we call this an alpha helix. They wind themselves around. And that's one strand. And then they form hundreds of strands. And then these big bundles form again, hundreds of bundles together. And that's what makes your collagen. And then there's another one they call elastin. Hyaluronic acid adds some moisture. Well, what people don't know, unless you go frequently to Japan, your skin also produces something we call ceramides. Ceramides are fatty acids. How do you think your moisture stays in the skin? Well, you need something that repels the moisture to not go out. And these are the ceramides. In your upper layers of your skin, about 30-40% in younger people are ceramides. And then the collagen is just like very, very good. But as we age, the collagen starts breaking down. There's less of it. So I always say it's like a building that was made with concrete and steel in between, and the steel gets rusty. And then after a while, the whole building collapses, and that's what happens to our skin, right? And we get the wrinkles and all that stuff. So you need those. You need the collagen. You need the elastin also. You need this whole framework. You need those fibroblasts. These are the cells that create all that stuff. All that stuff goes down as you age. And you need the ceramides because no matter what the collagen does, if you don't take care of what's outside, it's not going to work at the end of the day, right? Because you lose all your moisture. And that's what estrogen does. I heard Dr. Persa talking about estrogen and skin. Well, estrogen, like hyaluronic acid, is keeping moisture. And so you see creams where you just put it around the eye and like 10-15 minutes later, the wrinkles are gone. Oh, magic, right? And then you buy like $5,000 worth of that cream, and you go home and say to the husband, look at my eyes, and you say, yeah, you look like always, right? He doesn't say you look like crap, but Otherwise, he's not your husband anymore. But anyway, it's just like, it's temporary, right? It's temporary. So yeah, you can do a lot of cream add estrogen, in fact, synthetic estrogen. But if you're smart, you add more estrogenic oils. Oh, people cannot hear me in the back, so I need to be a little louder. Okay. Do you hear me now? Yes, okay, good. So, just need to be a little further away and do, like this. So, yeah?
Does collagen help with hearing?
Collagen and hearing. Oh, well, I would think because we have this inner ear and it's a structure, it contains collagen. I'm going to look at that when I come home. Yeah. So what do I do for hearing? Helichrysum, basil, and frankincense behind the ear, not in the ear, behind the ear. Didn't you have a little ringing in the ear years ago? That's what we did, right? So, we're not talking about medical stuff here, anyway. So, coming back to these ceramides, where in nature do we find ceramides? A lot of plants have ceramides. A lot of fruits have it. But peaches have twice the amount than everything else. And so that has been a secret, and the peaches of Nagano in Japan have been very, very famous for their ceramides. And in fact, they also use, even fruits have stem cells. So they use, when you take, most ceramides we get from the skin. Have you ever seen when you wash a peach, it's like a leaf, right? It has backs on it. The water just drops off. Well, that's the fat. That's the fat you want to have in your skin. So the water doesn't get out. So I haven't really seen good products that mix collagen, type 1, maybe a little type 3 if you want, but type 1 with ceramides. So that just alone is like fantastic. And then they take these stem cells and they get them on the the kernel in the middle, where you see these little red strings, on a peach when you open. That's where they get that from, and they inject it into the skin. And so, nice for us again, collagen can at this point not be really absorbed in any meaningful way, so you have to take it. Now, collagen, again, is not that easy to digest because these are long strains and kind of difficult to break down. So what we do, we hydrolyze it. It's a chemical process without chemicals or solvents, at least at Young Living. And this is where we make smaller pieces and they absorb right away. And we, in the video I cite plenty of studies, and you keep a little track on time so that at noon we kind of switch over a little bit to the topic, right? But, yeah, so we hydrolyze it, so we make it smaller pieces. You absorb it very easily, and we do fish marine collagen, right? Because that's type 1. And, the fish industry makes a lot of fish fillet and has the skin over, and the skin is really good for, I've been always eating fish skin when I can, because I knew for years that this is rich in collagen, right? So we have a marine collagen. It's very sustainable. If you go, of course, with type 2, you get it from all those cattle farms, which is not very nice. Most of the cattle is not really, so that's why a lot of people are vegans, because they don't want to support that kind of animal treatment. But so these are the two main components. But then if you don't add zinc, for example, zinc is absolutely crucial in building up the collagen. It's like a coenzyme almost. It's a mineral that you need. Same thing, vitamin C. So when you go back and think about, 200, 300, 400 years ago, when these sailors went to the Americas from Europe, that took about 3-4 months. And a lot of those sailors died. They lost all their teeth, when you look, we didn't have pictures from the time, but we know from the stories and drawings, they all, went like this because the bone went so weak that when they walked, they got, you call them O-legs, we call them, because they make an O, like this, right, not an X. So because the bone weakens, the gum goes away. Digestion, I don't want to even think about how bad they were and how the brain didn't work anymore after 2 or 3 months without vitamin C. So the disease was called scurvy, right? You heard about that. So vitamin C is, again, absolutely crucial to build collagen. And then we have vitamin B7, biotin, right? So a lot of ladies know that because you take biotin supplements for your hair and your nails. So you put it all together kind of thing, here we come with a product that has no fillers. Again, as you saw on slide, Collagen should be the #1 ingredient, and we have 5 grams of it in that scoop that you take. So it's really, really, really good. And we have no fillers. Go just look at the competition, and the first 4 or 5 ingredients are typically fruit juices, right? So it's just absolutely outstanding. Well, you have fruit and vegetables. You have also natural sources of biotin, right? So I need to look up exactly where ours come from, but ever when I go search, like, it's funny, we had to withdraw a few years ago one product a day before convention, because when I looked at the label that there were, when I prepare products, the label is typically not ready yet. The marketing materials are not ready yet, right? So because I prepare those lectures 3-4 months earlier so the translators can translate and all that stuff. And so one day I just looked at the label and said, folic acid? We on living, we don't do folic acid, that's synthetic. We do folate, right? And then so I got all excited and angry, and so I called the product development team and said, why are you using this? We already way ahead. We do natural vitamin B12, we do B9, which is folate. And they said, oh my God, yeah, this is like, most physicians also don't recognize there's a difference between folic acid and folate. So anyway, we had folate in there, but the label said folic acid, so they had to relabel everything, and we just withdrew it like within a day, and then you got it like at the next Young Living Day or something like that. So how are we doing with time? Yeah, 12. So, all right. Anyway, I hope that you really recognize this collagen is just out of this world, and you all need it. Starting at the age of 20, 30, that's when it starts breaking down. You all need it. All right, CBD and bone, how much do you take? Here's the lawyer. I will say do whatever is on the label. Here's the physician. I do 200 to 300 milligrams a day for the last, ever since it was legal. So just make up your mind, but I mean, the dosing we use is not to treat something. The dose we use on CBD, we talked about yesterday, the dose we use on CBD is to create homeostasis, meaning a balance of organ systems. So and for me, there's no extra strength, 1 gram CBD, and the 500 would be the normal strength. For me, there's a normal strength CBD, which is 1 gram. It's because when you look at the literature, for an adult, 33 milligrams a day with 1 dropper is about what you need for homeostasis. And then the 500 milligram is, either you don't have enough money, so you go that route, or it's for your children, or if you want to have less. But we're not treating at this point, right? This is just homeostasis. But you can bet you get benefits on your bones. No, on the bone, it really doesn't matter the flavor. That's a whole other discussion. Because when Gary and I started doing stuff, we used different oils, and then it was all had to do with legal stuff and all that. So, and this is the CBD lawyer anyway, and so we're going to look at a lot of that stuff in the future. Yeah, so if I take my CBD bottles, right, from Young Living, so yes, I do add oils to that, and I put it into bigger bottles, and I have 1 kilo of CBD at any given time in my fridge, 1 kilo, right? So you're buying 1 gram, I have 1 kilo. So what I do, I just spike it up, right? So even the muscle balm, I spike it up, and so, I just kind of, I like it, right? So I'm a CBD-holic. So can you take Life 9 forever, every day? I do. So I hope you do. Yeah, no, and then you can take Life 9 any given time, because again, Life 9 has to do with your immune system, right? So we're okay. So a lot of people will say, wait about an hour, at least half an hour apart from any essential oil before you take Life 9, because we know thieves and oregano and sandalwood and all these oils are pretty good to maybe, I don't know how to say that, right? but you use them for cleaning and all these things. So, and there's some bad germs somewhere. The research shows when you take those things together, essential oils, and there's specific research on this, on different essential oils. Most of it uses peppermint, by the way. Different essential oils together with probiotics. I mean, not Life 9, because we at Young Living making studies like that cost hundreds of millions. We rather put that into product development and give you good products, right? But the research shows when the oils only hit the bad guys. That's interesting, right? E. coli, Klebsiella, I mean, stuff you don't want to have around. And then about 3 or 4 studies show there's just no difference. But there's not a single study that I have seen that shows when you take it together that there's any disadvantage on the probiotics. So go ahead, take it together, enjoy it, put your flavor on it, all that. I take 1 or 2 capsules every day. I eat a lot of miso soup. We eat a lot of sauerkraut. I mean, I take anything that is fermented. Now we have ninja greens with over 50 vegetables and fruit fermented. That's what I tried to get across yesterday, right? Don't look at these Young Living products just one at a time. Should I order that or not? Look at the little bit bigger picture. We have 3 products this year that all really go together to support your gut, your immune system, your brain, your skin. It's just a bigger picture. It's just a bigger picture. And you talk about health and wellness and fitness. That's what you need. It's not just one. You just need to see what the bigger picture is. And so this is a very good segue into the immune system. And so I will do the first half hour, and then you take over. So I didn't let you answer any question about farm, but he'll take the next half hour. And just keep me on track on time so I don't miss my airplane. Yeah. Mom will be angry. Yeah, that's why I'm still married, right? So anyway, immune system. So did you know that you have different types of immune systems, right? When you're born as a baby, you get stuff from mama, right? This is why it's nice when you're born vaginally. Don't feel bad if you had to have a cesarean, right, because of medical reason. But do feel bad if you did that because you wanted just a more comfortable birth, right? That's not, and for a while this was pretty prevalent here in America. Okay, let's plan. So it's like at 3 in the afternoon so the family can be around and do the picture, and we'll just got to open the belly, right? But there's hundreds of medical reasons why we need to do that. So if you had one of those, just don't feel bad. Same thing with breastfeeding, right? You don't have milk, there's other reasons, inflammation, don't feel bad. But if you just didn't breastfeed because you wanted just your super boob, so you just had more silicone than milk, right? Then you should feel bad. No, I think so, right? I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and some people like it, when it's just like wherever you do, they always look upwards and all that. So. I cannot tell you all the stories I had with boobs in the hospital, in the ER, and all that stuff, so I don't want to go there. But anyway, yes, I'm a boopologist, not a poopologist, but also a boopologist. So why do we talk about boobs? Well, because I'm a guy, no. I always say it's very attractive fat, right? So it's good. So no, it's like immune system, right? When the baby suckles, right, it gets a healthy portion of your microbiome that is around your nipple, right? And so I know there's nipple shields today made out of silicone. All the bottles are made of some form of plastic. Never ever put a milk in one of those bottles that are not glass or stainless steel in a microwave or heat it up in a thing, because we know that there are millions of microplastic pieces going into the milk. You're feeding the baby with almost more plastic than formula or breast milk. So just be careful. And same thing. So when you use all these things in your young mothers, just sterilize. You need to sterilize for sure, right? You don't want to give an infection to the baby, but then let it cool down and warm up the milk in something else that doesn't shed anything into the milk. So microbiome, again, very, very important for the baby. So you're born with, we call this the innate immune system, the one you're born with, okay? So and we have, like, I always compare immune system with the castle of Osaka in Japan. I love to go to Asia, and I always go to Asia when with Young Living, right? Yeah. And so one day I go to Osaka, and it's like about 1.5 hours before we start. Everybody's already there. Were you there in Osaka? I don't know. So anyway, I'm there, and I'm already all suited up. Everybody's suited up, and I already have these shoes on, right? I will just tell you the story about the shoes in a minute here. But let me finish the story of Osaka. So when I go to cities, my workout is go and walk the city. So we're in that hotel event room, and I'm looking out of the window. I see this castle of Osaka, and I said, I'm just going to real quick go there. And my God, the Young Living staff Japan was just getting one after the other. One got a stroke, the other one a heart attack and all that. They all got anxiety because they said, that takes a while to go up there, and it's steep and coming down. And we started in 1.5 hours, so well, then let's go. And I just took off my tie, my suit, and just went. And then I looked back, and there's like 5 of them running after me, right, to make sure I find my way back and all that. But the castle of Osaka has 3 levels, right? It has a moat, and then you go first to the few walls, and at the end you have the castle with the defense. So your immune system is like the castle of Osaka. You have 3 levels of immune system, and the first level is the innate system that you're born with. You get from mommy, you get some good stuff through the microbiome, but also through, you know, the placenta and the blood and all that. So the other part of the part 1, the moat, is your skin, right? Your skin is a part of the immune system because it's the barrier between you and the environment, right? So the skin has to have microbes. So when you use antimicrobial soaps and all that, you're hurting your immune system, right? So be just very careful with what kind of stuff you put on your skin. So then there's other stuff, like your nose, right? We have hair in the nose, and I will tell you a secret. The older you get, the more hair you get in all kind of weird places, right? And so I never had anything with hair, and now my hair is like almost longer than this hair, you know, from the nose, right? So, but it's part of the immune system, right? Because it filters the air that you're getting. Then you sneeze, that's part of the immune system. Your gut is part of the immune system, and not the way I explained yesterday. If you eat something that you shouldn't, either you vomit or you get diarrhea, right? The body tries to expulse it. All of that is immune system. It's just a different type. It's the first line of defense. And you also have certain cells that go there. So then we go into the second part of the immune system, and that's a cellular part. You have SWAT teams that you also get partially from your mom. So when you're born as a baby, you already have a SWAT team going around. And the SWAT team is not very specific. It's just when something looks like a terrorist, they just go and shoot it, right? And sometimes it overreacts, and that's what we call autoimmune disease, when it really doesn't balance very well. And there's plenty of police to make sure it balances, but people with autoimmune diseases, they don't have that balance, and so they have a little more difficulty with the immune system. And then we go into the highest mode, and that's the new part, the second big part of the immune system, and we call this an acquired immune system, right? Because this is something you get exposed to something you shouldn't. And then your body has some macrophages, they like the janitors, they go and clean up, and then they present it to the butler takes it on the silver tablet and brings it to what we call a B cell, and that B cell will say, whoa, I don't like that thing, let me create something that will attack it right away when I see it the second time. This is why you can get a blood infusion once with the wrong blood group and it's probably okay, the second time you die, right? Because now you have antibodies. So these foreign particles we call antigens, right? Antigen, and then that creates antibodies in your body system. Why am I against lockdowns and quarantines and all that stuff? It's okay if you need to delay because the hospitals are overloaded and the personnel and they all burn out. That may be okay reason, but have you ever thought what we did to our, we call them the COVID children now, those, and I have a grandchild like that, that have been born in the last 2.5, 3 years. They have not been exposed to all these antigens, and they're not suffering from COVID. I mean, almost none of them. This is why, for me, vaccinating these babies, I don't know, right? They just don't really get it, and if they get it, it's typically not as hard. And I understand a few babies died from COVID. I mean, I understand that. So, you know, if you know a parent like that, it's a tragedy. But these babies have not been exposed to anything almost. And so now we see this huge surge since about 2 months of RSV virus, adenovirus, this virus, that virus we haven't seen, okay, halfway, we haven't seen for years. Okay, and so even my grandchild has now one of those, right? And it's very infectious, and now I'm kind of afraid for the parents, right? And all that. So it's just your immune system needs to be trained. That's what I'm saying. And there's something like, you know, if I hug all of you, you're just training me, my immune system, right? It's just a good thing. And since most of you are, let's just be honest, most of you are anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers and all that, I wouldn't touch you with even the, you know, whatever grade you are a year ago. I didn't feel comfortable because we didn't know enough. Today, you all had like 2 or 3 times COVID because you don't do the other stuff, and your antibodies are way better than those who had the vaccines, right? So, I mean, so congratulations. And we also start seeing the first studies now of all these lockdowns, and it really looks bad. It was a bad decision, with exception to just help the healthcare providers in the hospital. All right, so now I walked you to the 3 different levels. So that middle level, these are SWAT teams, right? We call them T cells because they created in the thymus, which is a little something behind your breastbone. The B cells, we call them Borsa cells, but they kind of created in bone marrow. So that's how you kind of distinguish these cells. So how do you boost an immune system? Well, it starts early on in your life. You need to start acquiring. You need to have your kiddos get sick at school. And just, you know, I mean, that's how we train, right? I remember my mom, somebody had the measles, she just sent me over there to play, right? Right, this is how we did it in the old times, right? Well, now there's other ways to do that, but still, you know, so you need to be exposed to a certain extent. And it's the same thing for us adults also. We need to have constant exposure, right? I just wanted to tell you quick about my shoes, right? So you have to understand, there's something, have you heard about Zika virus? Okay. Have you heard about babies that are born, when the mom has Zika virus, they're born with like a lot of brain damage? Good. I was in somewhere in the Caribbean where Zika is pretty out there, and after about 5-6 days, I got up in the morning and it's like, whoa, I was like this, like I had like, I don't know how many Moscow mules and margaritas and all that stuff. And I just like, I could barely see, and there was like a double vision, all that. So I said, uh-oh, stroke. And the other thought I immediately had, because I worked for over 20 years at the cancer center, I said, uh-oh, maybe worse. And so I asked my wife to do some tests with me and kind of, okay, it's not really a stroke, so what's left, right? So I really feel bad. My airplane leaves the next day, and I'm calculating, just in case it's a stroke, 72 hours, right, is kind of the golden line for treatment. So I call all my friends in the hospital. I said, I'll be at the hospital after about 70 hours after the beginning of the symptoms. So you have 2 hours time to run me through all the machinery, everything to treat me. And I was done in 1.5 hours. I mean, I had like, I don't know how many angiogram, MRIs, CT scans, all of that, blood work. Everything was rushed because they were ready. The moment my wife rolled me in the ER on a wheelchair, it was done. And nothing. I mean, luckily, no brain tumor, nothing. It's just nothing. And we couldn't see anything. It just looked like a normal brain. I mean, I was happy because I finally, for the first time, saw I have a brain. Right? And so here I am in the ICU and all that. My blood pressure goes up and down. My heart rate goes up and down. My bowel does whatever it wants to do. It's just no control on my body. I lost my vision completely. And a few days later, I saw you here and up there. It was just terrible. And you can read the story in the book. I mean, I wrote it in both books a little bit about it. And when they let me go after 3 weeks out of the hospital, they said, look, I mean, I said, I want the walker because I was still like, oof. And they said, no, you're not going to walk anymore. I mean, your best prognosis is in 10, 15 years is maybe a walker. But you need to get the idea in your head that the wheelchair is your future. And so when Gary and I talk about these things, we always say we brought it from other mothers because we experienced kind of the same thing at the same age. Like he left at 15, I left at 15, he did his thing, I did my thing. He woke up, when you read the book, The One Gift, he woke up with some stuff in the bed, animals or critters. I woke up with, I don't know how many 100 cockroaches on one of my travel in my bed, right? So things that we had all the same stories. So here I go home thinking I will never walk again, but I say I want a walker. So they send me a psychiatrist instead of a walker because this guy is an alpha male and he just is in complete denial, right? Complete denial. So they were working on me for 1.5 hours trying to get me out of my denial. And I said, again, I said, yeah, you're right, but I just... anyway, so I go home and now I cannot tell you what I did because I have a lawyer sitting here. But Young Living and oils played a big role. I probably looked at many bottles, let's say it this way. With what I saw a double anyway, so I saw all the bottles. The next day, so I did something. The next day I walked. Okay? The next day. And I almost got divorced that next day because my wife got so angry at me because in the afternoon, great, the way I'm thinking, I'm on the treadmill. And I'm walking like 4 miles an hour and I'm thinking, yeah, I just walk straight and it's great and then maybe I can go faster and start running. And my wife comes into the workout room and she sees me go like, woo, 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 like this. And so she shut it down immediately and I had to make a deal with my wife, you know, and all that. But so today I look down, it always reminds me, I'm supposed to be in a wheelchair and I'm not. Let's just jump back on the immune system. Yep, 9 more minutes and then I need to jump and the luggage is already packed and everything. And do you have the problem that when you come here, I came with the luggage in the luggage, knowing I'm going to bring a lot of stuff home, and I still had to unload half of the stuff into his car. He lives here because I couldn't take it home. It's just bursting full. Anyway, full of goodies. So yeah. Well, yeah. So anyway, I'll be here in a week again. So boom, boom. Immune system. How can you boost your immune system? So we talk enough about poop, right? I guess so. Today we'll tone it down a little bit. But sleep. So sleep has various function. I mean, a lot of people think that when you sleep, you put your systems at rest. No, you're in overdrive when you sleep. Your system are regenerating and doing a lot of stuff. Now here comes the first trick for you, and that's going to be a book that hopefully will be ready next year at convention. I'm running 2,500 people through this program right now. It's a biohacking program and sleep plays a big role, and emotions and oils and weight optimization. Why do I do that now? Because of what's going around the world and your immune systems are not as good. So I'm hacking your cells, I'm switching on genes on and off to make you sleep better, to make you work out better, to have muscle strength, brain power, hormone balance, detox, I mean, name it all. It's a 10-point program roughly, and I'll introduce it to you next year. It's all done with Young Living products, by the way. And so an important part is sleep. Did you know that when you sleep less than 7 hours, you gain weight? So here's the #1 trick for you to lose weight. Go and sleep. And it seems the sweet spot seems to be 8 hours plus minus 1. So you do 9 hours, we don't know yet. We see good studies also with 10, 11 hours. But then we see other studies when you sleep too much, that you're too tired during the day. So you'll have to figure out. Everybody's different, right? But sleep is very important for your body weight, and your body weight is related to your immune system. Now I'm going to tell you, so the most important people to vaccinate, to be honest, are the obese people. Because when you look at who is suffering from COVID most, who is going into the hospital, into the ICU, ends up on the ventilator, and ends up dying, 98 point something % are people that are overweight and obese. So of course there is a connection. When you go and look at vaccination results, whatever you do, mRNAs, I mean, I heard so many people, I will never touch mRNA because this is something artificial. no, you're full of mRNA. This is how your body works, right? They're just copying a piece of how your body works and just attaching a vaccine to it. So mRNA is fine. If you don't have it, you're not alive. So having said, and it breaks down, by the way, also spike protein, it's a protein. Proteins are broken down. So you're not going to be left over with the spike protein a year later or something like that. So in case you have to vaccinate for your profession or you believe in it, don't worry. I mean, worry, but don't worry. So where I'm going with this, again, I'm in the sleep and I'm in the immune system, I'm on the obesity. So I said the topic today is immune system obesity or body weight, right? So again, the people hit this the hardest are those with diabetes. Diabetes often is caused by overweight and obesity, or causes it, right, either way. But that's really what hits. And so the pandemic today is not a COVID pandemic. The pandemic is a COVID pandemic plus a cardiovascular pandemic plus an obesity pandemic, and it all hits at the same time, right? And the diabetes pandemic. So it's really, again, it's the bigger picture. Don't always look through the tunnel or through like a little magnifying glass. It's the big picture. So your body weight is just extremely important, and we can do so many things. I mean, just look at Power Meal, 170 calories, just like 11 grams of sugars out of those are just 2 grams, 3 grams of real sugars, right? The average consumption of sugar in the US is still over 200 grams. So go buy a kilo of sugar, a big bag, that's typically a kilo, that's 4 days worth of sugar. Average American. I mean, it cannot work that way. It just cannot. So you have to start there. Somebody asked me about liver cleanse, if you were this, you were that, or, yeah, that's all good. For me, liver cleanse start by reducing sugars, right? Because that's where all the problems start to get go. Even gallstone and all that stuff, because your liver gets into overdrive, your kidney gets into overdrive. It's not good for your brain, right? It's like cocaine, right? It's worse than cocaine. I mean, it's an addiction, right? So you start there. You sleep so now we have different things for the immune system. Take the natural stuff, hug a lot of people, right? Get the exposure, do the sleep, and optimize your body weight. And then nutritional deficiencies. I'm moving down probably to 3-4 minutes, something like that. 3 nutritional deficiencies. I mean, 80%, 90% of the US is walking around with nutritional deficiencies. This is why I love the 3 products we have. For me, they're a unit. Take them together. They taste also better when you take them together. They taste really good. You need to, just vitamin D. Roughly 70% of the population is vitamin D, delta D deficient. Well, vitamin D is involved in 25-30% of all your commands in your body. So if you not have enough, of course, your immune system cannot work. Vitamin D is crucial for many cells and many steps in this whole butler presenting the antigens to the immune system, creating these antibodies. You don't have vitamin D, it's not going to work. So, get your Super D. It's great. It's vegan. It's made from lichen. We call this moss, right? The moss that is on the tree. It's really good stuff. Zinc. We have at least 20% of the population, and mostly elderly people, those have a weakened immune system to start with. This is why, they say that every older person, like me, has to go and get vaccinated, because we have nutritional deficiency if we don't pay attention. Zinc, you need zinc, not only for the collagen, you need zinc for the immune system. It's absolutely crucial in maturing these, immune cells. So I just gave you a few, and stress. So let's do the last thing, is stress. You're in stress, your immune system just goes down. And it's quite interesting, when I worked with essential oil in the hospital, and can you not listen for a second? I was treating mostly brain cancer patients with other stuff, right? I'm a physician, I worked there. But I was telling them, hey, do aromatherapy, do this or that, just to decrease your stress, and your caretakers need to decrease the stress. And you know what we found? Suddenly the blood count went up. During chemo or after chemo. So suddenly I got people sending me patients to do whatever I do before they can do chemo with them. Well, what is it? I don't think it's a very magic solution. I think it's just the oils hitting your brain and relaxing you, like stress away. I call it the crack stick because I'm so addicted to it, right? Stress away, peace and calming, bergamot, ylang ylang, lavender. I think there's no big secret behind that. So you de-stress, your immune system will come up, right? So I gave you a few tricks now. I explained a little bit the immune system. and now I need to run. And my son, Nick Wenker, very proud, Young Living, he will take over, and I don't have time for questions. He will take over and do some fun stuff.
Oh, and other things, yeah.
So all I will do, if somebody wants still a book and a signature, I will do this for like 4 minutes, and then I'm running. So if nobody comes, I'm running.
Yeah. So, don't go anywhere. My goal is to give you an even better talk in the next 30 minutes than what you just heard. Are you up for that? All right. So, as he said, my name is Nick Wenker. I'm Doc Ollie's son. I've been at Young Living for just over 5 years. I'm a vice president and associate general counsel. And I've been around long enough to know kind of what people are interested in hearing about. And so I've got a couple different things that I think you're going to want to hear first. And I'll just hit all the greatest hits in a little bit of time I have. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is how I came to Young Living and some stories about Gary and Mary that you would not have not heard before. Maybe they don't want me telling them, but they're personally important to me and why I work at Young Living. You know what they say, character is what you do when nobody's watching, and I believe strongly in that. Then I'm going to talk a little bit, just quickly, CBD. I don't know how many of you have heard the talk that he and I did together about CBD yesterday, because I do all of Young Living's CBD law, design labels. I'm the one who kind of pulls products sometimes, so you may not like me for that, but I decide basically what you can or cannot say or do, and so I'll explain that a little bit because I see a lot of faces who weren't here yesterday. And then I'm going to talk about the Young Living Farms, and I'll tell you a lot about what's changed about the Young Living Farms the last 2 years that unfortunately Young Living Corporate hasn't really gotten the message out, but I think you're really going to want to know and spread that message. So I'll just jump all across the board, and I'll take some questions at the end. But let me tell you about how I got started at Young Living. So basically, about over 6 years ago now, Gary and Mary were staying at my parents' home in Houston, Texas, and I've been using Young Living products for a long time. I was working at arguably the best law firm in the world. They had an office in Houston, and Gary and Mary were at my parents' home, so I went to see them. And they had an event for distributors. Gary loved to cook for everybody. It was about 20 people. They hadn't gotten to do a crowd that small in a long time because Young Living had grown so big. And at the end of the day, everybody went home, and we are sitting around at my parents' kitchen table at midnight, and I'm still working, and it's Saturday night. I was working about 100 hours a week at my law firm. And Gary said, Nick, I've heard a lot about you. Why don't you come visit out west sometime? And I said, Gary, I'd love to come visit Young Living because, to be quite honest, with working 100 hours a week and it was a high-stress environment, the Young Living products, what I felt were what were really keeping me going as my secret weapon. And I had all these nitros in my office. I'm a nitroholic. And at first, some of the other attorneys, they would make fun of me. Some of the ones that were a couple of years more experienced than I was, but we even pulled a lot of all-nighters. There were weeks we all slept at the office for 4 or 5 nights on some of our work, and suddenly the same people who made fun of me for the nitro at the beginning, or the other oils, they would come into my office and say, do you have any of those little packets? You know, at 2 or 3 in the morning, whoa, nitro really gets you going. And so then Gary said, would you like to come out west? And I said, yeah, I'd love to come visit. And he said, no, you don't understand. You need to quit your job as soon as possible and come with me to Young Living. And I'd only met Gary and Mary a few hours earlier. A few days after that, I went with them on the Young Living plane back to Lehi, Utah. And the rest is history. And I've been at Young Living for over 5 years now. Thank you. Very happy to be there. And there's just so much that I love about the company. I love about the products, but I like to tell people why I like working for Gary and Mary. So as one example, that evening, there were over 20 people there that Gary made the pasta for, the einkorn pasta. And my mother, Ellen, some of you might know her, Ellen Wenker, she was in need of dire back surgery, really heavy spinal surgery. And she was in a hospital for quite a while after she finally had the surgery, and she couldn't really stoop over. And she tried to do the dishes, of course, after everybody went home. And Mary chased her away and said, no, Ellen, I know you're back. And so for like 30, 40 minutes, Mary is just there quietly at the sink doing the dishes so my mother doesn't have to do them with her broken back. Owns a multi-billion-dollar company, and she's there doing the dishes for everybody so my mother doesn't have to do that. That's character. Another experience I had in my first few months of working at Young Living is, at that time, Gary was at Skywriter all the time. I love Skywriter, I'm there quite a bit. And one time I was there, and it was me, and it was Gary and Marion, and I think Jacob and Joseph were there. And we sat down for dinner. There was nobody else on the entire property. You know, you hear all these stereotypes about direct sales companies. You see documentaries on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and there's a lot of stereotypes that people start direct sales companies because they want to buy, yep, see you later. They want to buy private islands or a fleet of Rolls Royce or whatever it is, and right? They couldn't care less what they're selling. It could be, you know, cogs from out of a factory. That's not Young Living. So when we sat down, Gary wanted to do a blessing for the food. It was just us. Nobody was there. Nobody was recording. Nothing, right? And I thought, okay, is he going to pray for financial success for himself or for the business? And Gary at that time was already quite sick and was always in a lot of pain, although he never showed it because he was a tough cowboy. So I thought, is he going to pray for his health to get better or for a cure or something like that, or just for the pain to be less? And that's not what he prayed for. You know what he prayed for when we were there, just the five of us? He prayed for the safety and well-being and the happiness of all the Young Living distributors all around the world. You know, when nobody's watching, that's what Gary would pray for. So I just wanted to share those two quick stories. I mean, they're private, so maybe Mary would get mad at me, but I just wanted you to know the character of the type of company that you're supporting and your organizations are supporting. You know, that's the type of people Gary and Mary are. And in fact, it's funny working at corporate because Young Living has challenges that other companies don't have that are a little weird because of the unique character of the Young family. So, you know, I've been in meetings where I've had coworkers tell me, oh, you know, we really had to fight with Mary today because we didn't want to give out a very big bonus to all the employees, but Mary insisted we give everybody a much bigger bonus than we were planning to. Or she will change the entire company profit sharing plan because it would be director and up, which is a fairly high level, directors, VPs, and executives, which normally is if you're just looking at it from a business perspective and HR perspective, that's what you do. You know, the employees that are the very talented, very high up, maybe have the education or the experience, those are the ones you want to funnel a lot of the compensation to because those are people harder to find, harder to retain. But Mary said, no, we need to change the profit sharing plan because even the lowest level worker in the warehouse or the janitor at Young Living needs to be able to share in the profit sharing plan. That wasn't done out of business, right? You can replace those people, but she wanted people who've been with Young Living for a certain number of years, no matter what level of the company they were at, to be able to share when the company does well. So there's even been, you know, fights with the CFO because Mary, they'll tell Mary, you need to take more money out of the company, you know, in case you're sued or just to have a backup in your own personal accounts that are not the company's name. And she will always say no. She'll say, I have a house, I have a car, which, by the way, she drives like an old car, a lot of times from like 20 years ago. And she'll say, no, I want to put it all back into the company. And sometimes if we don't have the budget for something at the farms, which I'll talk about in a minute, this has happened a lot last year too, she'll just say, well, I'm just going to pay for it. You know, she'll pay her own money to build something at the farm that's not for corporate. It'll be something nice when you go visit the Mona farm or something else there because she wants you and your kids to have a splash pad or whatever, just so that you have a good experience. So those are type of people that Gary and Mary are. And I think stories, even in isolation, tell a lot sometimes about character because this is just what they do out of the goodness of their hearts, not because they want me, you know, telling it. They don't know I'm telling these stories, but that's just who they are even in private. So I just want you to know the type of people you see in public, it's not a show like it is at some companies. That's also who they are on a personal level, and I see that every day at the company. So let me talk quickly a little bit about CBD for those of you who weren't here yesterday. So I'm just going to give a fast version of the already fast CBD talk I gave yesterday. I did mention this yesterday. There is a group on Facebook. It's run by Jill on Paul. And my dad and he did an hour, I did an hour on a Zoom call that's recorded. The group is called Grow, all lowercase with a period at the end, so Grow period. I think that's like 80,000 people in that group. The reason I mention it is because my understanding is anybody can join that group, and you can go on there and see this and other recordings. And there I talked for an hour in depth about CBD law and why I've made the company make certain decisions about labeling or compliance or claims relates to CBD. So there's the longer version for it if you want to go into that group. It's called Grow and then a period. So let me tell you quickly what I said yesterday. I get a lot of questions. Why can I not show myself taking the CBD under my tongue? Or why can't I make all these structure function claims, about CBD that I do about other dietary supplements? Or why can I not talk about, even more seriously, drug and disease claims? Because there's so much research out there about CBD helping with all sorts of stuff, and many companies will very aggressively, even big ones, sell it that way. And they'll be on TV with a weight loss CBD product or something for PTSD or Alzheimer's or whatever it is. And why doesn't Young Living do that? So let me give you, well, those people are doing that illegally. And we're trying to keep the company and you out of trouble. But how come some people are still saying it? What is the deal with CBD? Well, let me tell you the truth and why I've made Young Living make certain decisions or made recommendations. Unfortunately, it comes down to a lot of, and this is me getting a little bit personally political, but I think it's objectively truth in this case, and you can Google it yourself. It comes down to a lot of, I think, corruption, inefficiency, and dysfunction in the federal government. So, and Big Pharma is involved, which probably doesn't surprise you. So, CBD, of course, is a cannabinoid. It's naturally occurring in the hemp plant, and there's a book from my dad, Science or Power of CBD and Essential Oils. They may have sold out, but you can probably get it online. And this comes naturally from the plant, along with like 100 plus other cannabinoids. Well, due to a lot of bad science, bad public policy, some racist public policy, marijuana got thrown in with all the other really crazy drugs like cocaine or heroin. There's a federal law called the Controlled Substances Act. And on there, the very worst are what's called Schedule 1. And on there was marijuana, although I don't think it should have been in there. There's big efforts to legalize even marijuana in Congress. And in there, even dumber, they also included derivatives of the hemp plant, like these naturally occurring cannabinoids. So while it was illegal for everybody else, even though CBD is so good for you, they did allow a giant pharma company called GW Pharmaceuticals to do drug tests for epilepsy patients. And eventually they approved a few of those drug patents for a drug called Epidiolex. Well, the FDA has this very interesting rule that they made themselves, and it says once something is approved as an ingredient, as an active ingredient in a drug product, no one is allowed to sell it as a dietary supplement, even if they're using it for other purposes. Well, then they gave it to GW Pharmaceuticals, and I think it was around 2014 if I remember right. Well, in 2018, there was this huge interest in hemp, a resurgence. People were learning more about CBD, and so Congress passed the 2018 version of the Farm Bill, which they barely passed in time by the end of the year. It's renewed every 4 years. It's a huge political topic. There's a lot of money goes into it. It has to do with a lot other than CBD, but they included in there basically saying, let's take hemp derivatives off of Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act as long as you're below 0.3% THC content. And Congress thought that would be fine. But the federal government in the United States, unfortunately, is pretty far from the vision of the Founding Fathers. It's kind of this hydra. There's even examples, I'm an attorney, federal agencies suing each other over who has authority or things or budget. It's pretty silly. And so the FDA said, well, wait a minute, Congress did that. Yeah, I'm sure they want people to use CBD, but we're still the FDA. We regulate that stuff, and we're not going to let you sell as a dietary supplement or market it as a dietary supplement because we approved for this big pharma company this drug Epidiolex, and there it's an active drug ingredient. And it was so controversial, and millions of people started using CBD basically right away, and now they have for years. And then the FDA said, well, everybody's using it, so we'll tell you what, by the fall of 2019, we'll publish a pathway, and I think it was 2019, if not it was 2020, but they basically said almost right away, we're going to publish a pathway so that you know and companies know how to market and sell CBD products as dietary supplements, which all of a sudden would let you advertise taking it in your mouth, internally, drinking it. You could talk about structure function claims that stop short of drug and disease claims. And many people are already doing this, right? And it was being sold all over the country. The vast majority of CBD products are bad. They're mislabeled. Too little CBD, too much, higher THC than advertised. It comes from bad hemp plants in China. Hemp is phytoremedial. It'll pull toxins out of the ground. Lots of reasons you shouldn't use CBD products other than really Young Living. But anyway, they were prevalent. And then the FDA said in 2019, okay, we're going to let you know very soon how to sell it as a dietary supplement. Well, now it's the summer of 2022. Never happened. The FDA commissioner resigned soon after, and people think it's partly because of the pressure on CBD, because as you can imagine, Congress was very upset that the FDA was dragging their feet. In the years since then, there have been multiple pieces of legislation introduced in Congress, many with some bipartisan support, trying to force the FDA to very specifically allow CBD to at least be sold as a dietary supplement. What else happened in that time? All these state governments, they realized everybody in all their states are using CBD in all sorts of ways. So they just started making their own rules because the FDA wasn't doing anything. So the FDA says definitely don't put it into food and drink, or don't put it into a pet product. And then you have all these state legislatures coming out and saying, oh yeah, if you want to make a CBD food and a drink product in Florida or North Carolina, or a pet product or whatever, here's how you do it. And this is where you apply for a permit. And in fact, a lot of the states ended up saying to sell a CBD product in that state, you have to put the dietary supplement disclaimer on it that you normally see on a product, that it comes basically from the FDA or some version of it. So the FDA says, very illegal to sell it as a dietary supplement or to market it that way, and all the states are saying, oh yeah, put that dietary supplement disclaimer on the label or it's illegal in our state. And there are a couple of lawsuits that popped up over CBD products in the first year or two after the Farm Bill, and they all got thrown out or frozen because all the companies said, well, all the states are saying different things. The states are saying different things in the FDA, and the FDA is contradicting itself and is not doing what it said it was going to do. And the judges agreed, yeah, it's not even possible to be fully compliant with the law because the law is all over the place. And so why has the FDA not acted on all this pressure from Congress? Well, Big Pharma is lobbying like crazy to prevent this legislation, even though many of these companies are not involved in CBD. Why is that? Because they are scared to death about the precedent of taking an active drug ingredient that was approved by the FDA and then allowing it as an ingredient in a dietary supplement product. Imagine if these products were widely available rather than being a drug product that they can charge you $1 zillion for. Big Pharma profits would go way down. And by the way, GW Pharmaceuticals was sold about a year and a half ago for billions and billions and billions of dollars, partly because the FDA was nice enough to give them this legal monopoly on CBD. Right, in some context. So I'm sorry to give you that sad story, but it's just what you probably have learned already in your life about sometimes, unfortunately, the American government serves special interests rather than the interests of the American people. You know, I'm on my soapbox a little bit, but you can Google all this yourself. I think the information is out there. There's a lot of frustration out there. And even the courts have said, yeah, we got to throw out these lawsuits because the government doesn't know what it's doing and is contradicting itself. So, you know, and that happened even with the pet product. I got the pet product pulled, you know. Why did I do that? Because the FDA sent a bunch of warning letters to a bunch of companies saying, oh, definitely don't sell CBD pet products, even though they're now advertised on TV and whatever. And, you know, I heard Oprah has like a weight loss gummy or something with CBD. Why don't they go after Oprah? Well, Oprah's, you know, big and powerful. So, you know, that's what my dad was talking about earlier. All these things out there the FDA should be stopping, they're not. And all the things that they are stopping are things where they're contradicting themselves, or maybe they should let people make their own decisions. So that's why we make the labeling and the claims and the restrictions we do with Young Living CBD. We are trying to be much more conservative than other companies. One, because we know governments love picking on essential oil companies, for one thing, and because the law is all over the place. So we have to hope that eventually Congress does pass this legislation to enact really what was the intent from years ago already, from the 2018 Farm Bill, to allow people to more openly use and market and take CBD. And the excuse right now from the FDA is when they're under pressure from Big Pharma, oh, well, we don't have enough safety data about CBD. And there are things that they need to look into. There are concerns about it, you know, if you take too much, does it hurt male fertility? Some stuff that from what I've seen so far, it's inconclusive. But, you know, we know all the health benefits of CBD. You can Google it, not from Young Living, but there's tons of science out there. It's widely publicized. And millions of people have been taking CBD for years now, right? And, you know, probably half of you or many of you have used CBD. You're not dropping dead right now from what I can see. So, but, you know, that's the excuse right now is safety data, rather than letting people make their own choices or talk to their own doctors or see it for themselves. So if you want to know why we are so conservative with what we let you say on Facebook or so with the Young Living CBD products, that is the reason. It's a sad reason, but it probably is not surprising to many of you based on what you've seen going on in our country for a long time now. So I'll take questions at the end, but let me jump now quickly to the next greatest hit, which is talking about the Young Living farms. So in addition to being a CBD lawyer for Young Living, I also have been the lawyer for the farms for over 5 years. when I came to Young Living on the first day on the job, I met with the general counsel and I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, we're going to give you all the things nobody wants to do, none of the other lawyers want to touch. You know, that's what you want to hear on your first day in the first morning. And they said, we need someone to do all the event contracts or things like this, which is complicated and is always has a last minute component. Then we need somebody to do stuff for the foundation because the head of the foundation had just left and they needed a lawyer. And so I have been on and off, including right now. I've been a lawyer for the Young Living Foundation and worked together with those wonderful teams on all those wonderful projects. And then also, they said the thing absolutely none of the lawyers want to touch ever is the farms, because Gary is super involved with the farms. He doesn't ask for permission, he just does stuff. And if you do a bad job, he's going to know because he's at the farm and you got to be with them at the farm. And they've popped up piecemeal historically, and so they all have their issues and they're very complicated. Definitely, you know, you're going to get the farm snake because none of the other lawyers want to do it. That was the first day on the job. The second day on the job, I was out in Tabiona, Utah, in Duchesne County. I'd never heard of Tabiona. I was at Skyrider Ranch, and I was, you know, maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but at this point we've fixed it all. I was on top of an illegal half-built dam that Gary was building at a pond that, you know, he shared with somebody else up high above, and he was trying to build a dam there and kind of split this pond in half, which, you know, the Army Corps of Engineers has very strong feelings about trying to build a dam without their permission. And in fact, there are different categories of dam, I would find out. There's low hazard, medium hazard, high hazard are the general categories, and low hazard is maybe, medium hazard is no, high hazard is hell no. Is kind of my understanding of it. And so this would have been a hell no dam because there was actually a house at the bottom of that hill where Gary was trying to build a dam. And so somebody had already pulled all the crews from there. And, you know, Gary was just like, you know, I own this part of this land. Why can't I do this? I thought this was America kind of attitude, which, you know, he grew up as a, you know, self-sufficient, working since he was 14 years old in rural Idaho. So big government and regulation and laws are kind of, you know, he was always trying to understand, why is the government telling me what to do with my land? And then I would find out, okay, so we've got this dam, and then he moved the water like a couple miles down to the Skyrider Lodge, which you also need permission to move water from one place to another. You need a change application and some other things. And then he built new little ponds down there, which you need permission to build ponds, right? You know, and then, you know, to add, you know, insult to injury, he filled them with fish, which you're supposed to get permission to introduce, you know, fish to these ponds. But to Gary, it was all, this is my water, my land, what's the problem? You know, and that was my second day on the job. So that was my kind of introduction to running after Gary and helping, and we've patched it all up since then, and we had enough water rights to do all this, but we need to go back and kind of fix it all. And so that's how I got started with the Young Living Farms, and I've been doing their legal stuff for over 5 years, and until recently, for a year and a half, all the farms around the world reported up to me. Now I'm back on the legal team, but I still work closely with the farm managers. So I want to give a little credit to the farms team and tell you what's changed there in the last couple of years that I think you'd be really excited about. So internally, the Young Living Farms are not called the Global Farms Team anymore, which used to be kind of what that department was called. They got together a while after Gary died, and they said, look, the company goes out and says all sorts of things about seed to seal in the marketing department, but they need to come to us first because we are the farmers, and Gary was a farmer, and we understand seed to seal better than anyone. So internally, and they even have shirts, you've been to the farm booth, if you read closely the label, this is an older shirt, but they have shirts that say SSBO. That is the Seed to Seal Business Organization. The farms have dramatically expanded internally within Young Living in the last 2 years. And, very importantly, since that whole time, Mary, out of her busy schedule, for 2 to 3 hours every Wednesday morning, is on the weekly executive SSBO call. So Mary is so deeply involved in the farms, if ever they don't get budget for something, she goes and fights for the budget, and she says, the farms need new equipment, we need to expand the distillery, we need to make Mona better for people, we need to build all sorts of amazing things at every farm so that people have a place to stay or some place to shop when they come to the farm. So Mary is so personally involved with the farms and fighting for them because to her, the farms are Gary's big legacy. And all the oils, of course, you know, at the end of the day, it starts with the farm. And so for Mary, you know, fighting for Gary and what he stood for means fighting for the farms. And now it's even at the point, in, as of the last few months, where we have like Ben Riley and Melissa. So you have, the president and the CFO. They're on these calls because, Mary's there and Mary makes them go. So, there's no other part of the company where everybody kind of gets dragged there and Mary's there every week. But the farms are the one place because the farms are so important to Mary. And what have we done with the SSBO to change it from what used to just be called the Global Farms? Well, over the last 2 years, first of all, one thing we did right away is Gary, when he was around, of course, he was very closely involved with where do we get oils from. Well, that was a different department, which makes sense. Purchasing is usually like a division of a company. It might be, and we have purchasing for other things like packaging, but oil sourcing was its own department. Oil sourcing all got moved under the farms. The farms are now in charge of, since 2 years plus, where we get every drop of oil in the world from. And they say, don't buy that, we can grow that ourselves. Or we want to send some farmers there, not just some purchasing people, and the farmers will figure out if that other place that's a partner of ours really is seed to seal. So now all oil purchasing, every drop of oil, is all run through the Unlimited Farms. The next thing that they did is they dramatically expanded specialized staff to be there just to support the farms. So they now have their own financial analyst. The whole rest of the company, FP&A, financial analysis, is run out of the finance team. But the farms have their own dedicated person just for the farms, for the long-term strategic and financial planning of the farms, including the expansion of existing farms and the purchase or construction of new farms. They also have their own project management and construction management personnel. People with construction backgrounds, the financial analyst, and the construction person all have MBAs. So we've added a huge amount of dedicated support just to the farms because they have so many construction projects at our own farms or partner farms, new distilleries, boilers, new things for you all to go see on the property. You can only imagine. And we go to our partner farms and we give them expertise on how they can be more efficient with their essential oil production. Or if there's something we see that's not up to our standards, we tell them, look, you gotta, switch out this and that to be as good as our own distilleries because we want your oil to be as good as our oil if we're gonna sell it to all the young living people around the world. We have our own marketing and communications person, which is now why you see, after about 2 years of hard work, if you haven't heard before and you didn't see it at the expo, Young Living now has Skywriter branded products. Not just, shirts and stuff, but we have Einkorn Crunch, which is incredible, and we have the Bison Bites, which I was very closely involved for 2 years in those products. Man, do they taste good. And it's like, you look at the label, that is such high quality meat, and it has this amazing essential oil flavor. And by the way, that was really difficult, that the farms are pushing really hard into new frontiers. We've never had like a USDA meat product before, and that's another really weird part of the government where like one random person, like they tried to tell us what we could call our product, like what the marketing should be. Like it just, and we had to like go above that person, we had to get lawyers involved. They tried to do like, well, you can't say it has essential oils, why not? It's an ingredient. And so it's just weird government dysfunction. We had to push past all that. And if the taste is amazing, you look at the label and what's in the ingredients, it's just incredible. It's so hard to find a product like that. It's such a good snack, even one packet, it'll fill you up, in my opinion. So now, and there's a separate Skywriter website. If you haven't looked for the Skywriter website, Skywriter Ranch, go see that website. In my opinion, it's better than any Young Living website in terms of the videos, the media, there's stuff that plays when you go, there's stories about the conservation easements. It's just incredible. And speaking of conservation, I hope you all saw in the middle of the farm booths at the expo, a giant thing that said conservation. After Gary passed, I created, with the Nature Conservancy, the D. Gary Young Wildlife Sanctuary of like around 11,000 acres near Tabiona, Utah. That was the largest ever single donation of land into a conservation easement in the state of Utah, in the history of Utah, as far as I was able to tell. There are some easements that are bigger because over time different people donated chunks. That was the largest ever donation. Now here's the interesting thing. Most people do conservation easements, and the IRS has really cracked down on them in recent years because you get really big tax deductions. Young Living donated those 11,000 acres or so without a penny of tax deductions. We did it purely to preserve Gary's legacy and protect wildlife because they have important migration corridors in that area, which you can read about on the Skywriter website. Just recently, we gave up a chunk of land on the main ranch, the Skywriter. And the state of Utah told us they think in 30 years all the bighorn sheep that are left in the U.S. are going to be descended from the nursery herd at Skyrider Ranch. And there's so many other amazing projects we're working on, and of course we work closely with the amazing sandalwood farm in Hawaii, with the amazing sandalwood oil and hydrosol, which I use in my hair. Mary, I think, gave me a shout out on main stage. By the way, do you want to know from Mary's comment what I use in my hair? So this is a formula I got from my dad, Doc Ollie. So I put thyme, rosemary, lavender usually, cedarwood, and then I just get some like organic castor oil and I mix it in there. Now I also, my dad's been doing a lot of research on sandalwood hydrosol. I also put in there sandalwood hydrosol, which you can buy. It's like a little spray. And, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll just say it's an anecdotal story. So I started doing this before I moved to Young Living, when I was still working in a law firm in Houston, and I mixed this all in my hands because I heard about it from my dad. I didn't know I'd lost any hair. I was maybe 29 or so. And I was worried about long-term hair loss. And so I got this kind of mix from my dad, and I started putting it in my scalp. And I get a haircut about every 3 weeks. My hair grows kind of fast, and I usually just kind of get a buzz. And so as I was driving home, I was kind of feeling my forehead just shake out any loose hairs. And I felt this funny thing along the top of my scalp. And it was very strange. I'd never really had that sensation before. So I thought maybe I had a little sunburn at the top of my scalp, right below my hairline. And then I got home and I looked closely in the mirror and I saw this entire row of hairs that were really short that were coming out further from my hairline because, and I hadn't seen it before because it was covered up when my hair was longer. But of course it was too short to get cut even with the buzz. So then I saw it. And so for a few months, every time I got a haircut, I kept doing it, my hair kind of kept moving further out. Now, I've had some friends and family try that, and for some people it worked, for some people it didn't. But that was I'd never seen that before, all of a sudden stuff's coming in. So, give it a shot, see if it works for you. I can't make any promises, but, we're definitely going to be trying it with Jacob now that, poor guy got mutilated. I basically told him we're going to send him to the Young Living Monastery soon to raise lavender bees. Thyme, rosemary, cedarwood, lavender, and I think that then I just put it, it's sandalwood hydrosol as well. And there's some other people out there who've talked a little about hair and oils. And they have their own mixes or mixes that are special for women. That's just what worked for me personally. So I think I'm about out of time. Thank you so much for staying. I hope you had a great time.